Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners postgame podcast powered by Olipop. How about it, guys? Oklahoma, after being shellacked last season, 49-0, comes in to the Cotton Bowl and I don't care what anybody says, you can go and watch the game. We were talking off air. We talked about the time of possession, how long Texas led, which was like 2 minutes at most, the whole game, right? How long was it that they were?
They led for exactly 1 minute and 2 seconds, Brandon, from the 117 mark until Nick Anderson caught the touchdown.
A full strength Oklahoma squad goes into the Cotton Bowl, being ranked number 12, takes on number 3 Texas, and takes them to town 34-30. And what we all will agree is another epic classic.
What I love about this series, Brandon, is that in the last few years, it has given us some of the best games in recent memory in college football, bar none. If this game happens 5 years ago, as we mentioned on the rapid reaction, it is instantly the best game in the history of the Red River rivalry. As it is, it's maybe the third most impressive game between these two teams in the last 4 years. It never, especially as of late, this series never lacks in drama.
I don't think 2020 is ever really going to get its due just because of COVID and a half-filled stadium. So the amount of it's not going to have the lure just because of the amount of people that didn't get to attend that game. We were present, but it still had a good feel for it if you were in the stadium. But I'm sure on television it lacked that pop of seeing the burnt orange on the left and crimson on the right, white on the right. At the 50-yard line. Just the Red River essentially down the middle at the 50. So I agree that this game is up there. It probably is number 2 for me. Right?
This one for me, of the 3, I would say it's number 2.
Yeah.
I would say it is. I would elevate it above 2020. By the way, before we get too deep here, want to remind all of you that this postgame podcast, as always, is brought to you by the good folks at Olipop, the soda that's good for you. Mm-hmm. If you haven't yet tried Olipop, please go to drinkolipop.com. Use promo code CHAMPU20 for 20% off your very first online order. Or go to your local Walmart, Whole Foods, Sprouts, or Target and grab a can. Never more than 5 grams of sugar. Always 9 grams of dietary fiber and prebiotics to enhance digestive health. That's what you're getting in every can of Olipop. Brandon, we have lots of thoughts on this game. We're going to air out all of our opinions. We're going to expound on our thoughts over the next however long it takes us for us to come full circle and stop this recording. But the third member of our postgame podcast crew this evening is Bryan Clinton.
Yep.
Bryan, you got to watch this game from home. Yeah. Brandon and I have talked plenty amongst ourselves and on the rapid reaction video regarding some of the things that stood out to us, which, again, we will unpack in greater detail later on. But I want to give you the floor here. What was, from your vantage point, what was there to like about the way Oklahoma played football today?
Well, first of all, just comparing this, I guess contrasting this to previous matchups over the last few years, this one truly felt like a heavyweight bout. It felt like a heavyweight fight between
100%.
Two teams that just, balanced, two balanced football teams, two teams that know what their strengths are. And it was impressive to see the way that Oklahoma's defense set the tone from the very get. I was very impressed with how Oklahoma held up, not only defensively, but just straight up on the offensive and defensive line. At the line of scrimmage, Oklahoma was the more physical football team today. And that always matters in this game. And just when, I don't know how many times I was guilty of saying it myself, or heard it said this week. Most people were like, well, they're not going to get the running game figured out against Texas. While Dylan Gabriel came up with more than 100 yards of that, they got it figured out. They averaged 4.7 yards a carry. They outrushed Texas 201 to 156. And they look good doing it. So I was just impressed with the balance. And again, the ability for this team to overcome adversity, not just offensively, as we've seen over the last several years, but defensively. They've found ways to dig themselves out of holes and get off the field when they needed to. And that's how you win football games.
Now, let's not bury the lead here. This was the game that made Dylan Gabriel's legacy at Oklahoma, at least to this point. He's got another half season to continue writing his chapter as the starting quarterback at Oklahoma. And this may not be the zenith for him, but this game, and more specifically, that last drive, fellas, for a lot of folks, a lot of people within the Sooner fan base, that moment, that challenge that Texas presented when they took that 30-27 lead and kicked the ball back to Oklahoma, that was what was going to define Dylan Gabriel in a lot of people's minds. That was where a lot of narratives were either going to be confirmed or invalidated based on how Gabriel handled that situation, handled that high pressure scenario, and he handled it flawlessly.
Well,
it was clinical, the final drive from Oklahoma.
No, you nailed it. Jesse and I were talking about this in the press box. This is probably mid-third quarter. And I turned to him and I said, I know he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass yet, but if you go look at his stats, I think he had like 183 yards at halftime passing, and there was like 45, 50 yards rushing, right? And I said he's got 190 total yards at halftime. And I said, I bet he ends up close to 100. Jesse can vouch for this. I said, at the pace he's at right now, there's already people talking at halftime going, okay, this number 8 guy could be throwing himself into the Heisman talk like right now if he continues to play at what he and at that same pace. And I made note. I was like, look, I believe he was 14 for 21 at halftime for like 183 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 67%. I'm trying to remember this all off the top of my head. 67% completion percentage, and I believe his QBR was like 176 or something to that extent. And that's a heck of a stat line if you're just playing a full game. This dude was at halftime just racking up stat after stat after stat after stat and had Oklahoma right in the ball game. I think it was 10-10 at halftime, correct? So this game, regardless of what happens down the line, Dylan Gabriel is forever and ever living in Sooner lore because of that last drive. He could go, Oklahoma could go 6-7 the rest of the year, and this game will still come down as one of the greats of all time because of what was at stake when the game took place. It doesn't matter what happens later on. What was at stake during this moment at this time was very, very, very central. And mind you, this may be, I want to say, the first time since did they start out 9-0 in 20? What? No,
10-0. They were 10-0 in 2021 with Caleb Williams, correct? Because then they lost to Baylor.
They were 9-0, correct, in 21. Correct.
I'm sorry, allergies are killing me, and I had to go blow my nose.
9-0, right?
Which season are we speaking of?
In 21.
21.
They started They started 8-0 before losing at Baylor.
So this would be the second time, if they go and they beat UCF, would be the second time since 2004 that Oklahoma started 7-0. Think about that stat. That shows you how hard that is to do with all the great teams that Oklahoma's had from 2004 to 2023. There's only been one other team, and that was the 2021 team that was such a roller coaster, but somehow, some way they started 8-0. So that to me is, I want to say, just very, very, very big for Oklahoma, because if you can go out and you can beat UCF following this game, you have definitely put Dillon Gabriel right there and the crux nibbling at Caleb Williams' heels. Now it's going to be hard to overtake him.
Yeah, well, and here's the way I look at it. I look at it kind of similar to 2019 with Jalen Hurts. If Dillon Gabriel puts up these numbers and does what he does, assuming he sustains this throughout the course of a full regular season, most every other year he would have been squarely in the Heisman conversation. And I do think at this point he's positioned himself to go to New York City. But in 2019, Joe Burrow simply ran away with the Heisman, and there was nothing that could be like. It was the single most impressive statistical season for any college quarterback in the history of the game. So I kind of feel the same way about this Heisman race in 2023. Like, it feels like Caleb Williams is running away with it, but we could at the very least acknowledge that right now, Dillon Gabriel, with what he has done and what he is poised to do over the second half of this season, he controls his own destiny in terms of going to New York City.
Correct.
Much as the Sooners control their own destiny from here on out as a football team, Dillon Gabriel controls his own destiny with regard to being a Heisman candidate. And look, Brian and I are probably both too young to have full context for this, Brandon. So I'm going to ask you, the geezer of this trio, how similar is this feeling to 2000 right now?
It's got a lot of similarities. Obviously, the Texas game, they didn't come out and just bum rush them. Well, I guess they did to start, but they didn't hold up that. I honestly thought when Gentry picked that off and they went down and scored, and then Dolby picked it off, I was having flashbacks going, uh-oh, here we go. Oklahoma's about to just throttle Texas. And it has a lot of the same feel. And Venables talked about that in the presser, by the way, because he said
he was asked a pretty direct question about it.
Question: how much does this feel like 2000 to you? Well, actually, no. He had talked about the defense, and he said, "I probably akin this defense to 99 2000 because," and he said, "no offense to them and no offense to the guys this year." He said, "just a bunch of misfits going out and playing ball." That's what it direct quote, by the way.
I mean, that's, and you see that right now. By the way, I kind of on that topic, one thing I want to reference and make sure we acknowledge is that this team did an exceptional job today of handling the flow of momentum, because it is a tough thing in that setting at the Cotton Bowl, within the context of this rivalry series, to adequately be able to stem the tide when the other team gets rolling.
Yeah.
And we saw Oklahoma do that time and again today. Now, granted, Texas punched back. For instance, Oklahoma had all the momentum in the first 5 minutes of that game, and then, boom, the Longhorns get their hands on a punt. Malik Muhammad is right there to scoop it up in the end zone, and Texas hadn't done anything offensively, but the score is 7-7 at that point. So the Longhorns were able to make some plays when they needed them as well. But to see the way that Oklahoma on both sides of the ball continually found themselves, typically by no fault of their own, in adverse situations, and responded not only in the sense that they were able to shut down the opponent's momentum, but they were actually able to seize the momentum back. That, to me, speaks volumes for where this team is at mentally, because you have to have a great degree of mental resolve to be able to accomplish something like that repeatedly in a setting like this. And there is no better example of this than A, the goal line stand in the early stages of the fourth quarter, and B, the final drive.
Yeah.
That
Go ahead,
that
Brian.
I want to just piggyback off of a point you were making there. In this game specifically, you always kind of hear about how important maturity is and having the experienced guys. And there are several experienced guys on the field, but you see the young guys all over the place making all kinds of plays. I mean, obviously Dylan Gabriel's been around the block. He's been, this is his 5th year of football, but the guys around him, the Nick Andersons, the Peyton Bowens, Ethan Downs had a fantastic day, and he's starting to get on the older side of things, but it just speaks to the maturity of this football team. Just how much they have turned things around in a calendar year from where they were at last year. And I don't think that can be overstated how big of a deal that is, because you have seen this team fully take on Brent Venable's attitude and mentality, and it shows up in those hard moments. And I just don't think that's not something that just comes overnight. You can tell how much work that's taken.
You brought up Ethan Downs, and we've been talking about Dylan Gabriel, and I know
Brandon's about to take a mad victory lap on Ethan Downs,
I am,
as he should. As he should.
He deserves it.
I've been defending and defending and defending, and I will completely say that I am biased when it comes to Ethan Downs. I am, and I will admit that. I've known his dad for quite a while. Obviously, I'm the one that put Ethan out there for everybody to see to an extent, and really got the ball rolling for him a little bit, as far as just kind of pumping him up a little bit. He did all the work. He just was living in Weatherford, Oklahoma, which is very hard to be seen. And he got to go down there to that All-American Combine. And I told everybody, I'll never forget, this guy is going to show everybody who he is today. He goes out there and wins the Combine MVP, defensive MVP. And rightfully so. He was unblockable. And you saw that Ethan Downs. Last year was and he still had a good year. The guy had 12.5 tackles for losses last season.
He was second team All Big 12.
Second team All Big 12. And he still got no cred. He already has 3.5 sacks this year. And I think he's got 9 tackles for losses already, because he's got 21.5. No, wait, he's got 8. He's got 8 tackles for losses this year. Excuse me, 8 tackles for losses, something of that extent. Can't remember the total.
The man ragdolled Quinn Ewers today.
Did you see when he just bum rushed and bull rushed that tackle? And I don't remember which tackle it was, but he bull rushed him, tackles Quinn Ewers with one arm, turns and stands over both of them and just flexes. And the ref had to walk over there and tell him, like, can't do that. I'm gonna have to call a penalty.
That is, and we talked to Ethan after the game, and he was like, man, I don't know where that came from, because that's so not Ethan, right? Like,
did that
exactly. It happened twice today, but like we've never seen that from Ethan before.
Man, and OU fans are going to do that again, bro. We don't.
Yeah, please. That the fans want more of that. They want that edge. They want that scrappiness from Ethan Downs,
Wasn't there a lot of haterade punch? Like they just went and spiked Dylan Gabriel and Ethan Downs went and spiked the bowl of haterade.
I mean, what is most impressive in what was an amazing performance from Dylan Gabriel today. 398 total yards. First quarterback in the history of this series on the Oklahoma side to rush for 100 yards and throw for 250. But the singular thing that is most impressive to me is that was his one shot right there. That is the only time he was ever going to get that moment, because this is the only Red River rivalry game he's ever going to play in.
Well,
and so
he has a chance to play again, but he's not going
to. What happened today, and I'm sure Dylan understood this as well as anyone. Like, this game is where legends are made. And what you do in this game is remembered forever. And for better or worse, what happened on that final drive was going to go a long way toward dictating how Dillon Gabriel was remembered in Sooner lore.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to seize the moment like that, when he knows he's not going to get it again, that, gosh, man. And we talked about it in the pregame podcast. He's just such an easy guy to root for because he's just so humble, so cool, so level-headed. And it's so much fun to watch a dude like that does everything the right way, just absolutely giddy after flinging that final touchdown pass and walking back to the sidelines to love and adoration from his coaches and teammates and 50,000 strong Sooner fans in attendance.
As humble as he is, he did strike the Heisman pose in the tunnel, which I thought was epic. Not in the tunnel, right before you walk into the tunnel, the OU fans are parading him and telling him how great he is. He's got his lei on and he's waving at everybody, kind of, he's getting his roses, the roses that he deserves. And he stops, thinks about it for a second, and just strikes the pose and walks on. And that's a side of Dillon Gabriel that we haven't seen. And it's probably been a little bottled up because he hasn't had a chance to have a moment like this. I guess he kind of did last year against Florida State, and the defense kind of botched it. And if you remember, he drives him down the field and puts him up by 3. He actually has a defense backing him up now.
Well,
and that goes a long way with your Sooner lore. One way, you can't control everything.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I think this is the first time, to my recollection, guys, that the game has been squarely, objectively in Dillon Gabriel's hands at the very end.
No, that's fair.
But there has not been a situation yet where it's been, okay, Dillon Gabriel makes this drive and they win, or he doesn't and they lose. And in this instance, fellas, Dillon Gabriel made that drive, and he made it look effortless. So, again, I don't know at this point what you can knock that kid on, because I know he's had his detractors. I know there are those that believe, to borrow a term from the kids, there are those that believe Dillon Gabriel is mid. But I don't know what is left after today for those that try and hold Gabriel accountable for his sins, as it were. I don't know what's left for them to grasp onto, because there is no bigger stage that he has faced in his college career than this, and he owned it.
Hey, Sooners fans, we would like to thank our new sponsor, Manscaped, who has taken a step away from Halloween to bring your face the cleanest shave it's ever seen. Fellas, let's be honest. No woman wants to see their man throw away their hygiene, right? And all women love a well-manicured face and beard. That's why I ordered the handyman to make sure my neck and beard line looks the best it can all the time for my wife and for these podcasts and OU Insider Lives. So whether you want to look fresh and clean shaved, or you want to have a clean looking, well manicured beard, all you have to do is go get 20% off and free shipping using the promo code OU Insider at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use promo code OU Insider. For a look as sweet as candy, get yourself a handyman from manscaped.com.
This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is sponsored in part by Caldera Lab. Caldera Lab knows the skincare world is heavily female-driven and has long been the wild, wild west for men. That's why they're making the solution simple, starting with the regimen. The regimen includes 3 products: the Clean Slate, the Base Layer, and the Good. The Clean Slate starts and ends your day. This face wash leaves all skin types refreshed. The Base Layer is your daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin and jumpstart your day full of confidence. And the Good is your go-to multifunctional serum at night that helps your skin look tighter and smoother and helps reduce the visibility of wrinkles and fine lines. Every drop of this serum is packed with 3.4 million antioxidant units protecting your skin. Caldera Lab is the leader in men's skincare, made only with top-tier ingredients, and clinical trials have found 94% of men's skin showed an overall younger-looking appearance after using Caldera Lab for just a few weeks. 1 minute morning and night is all it takes to reduce your wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. So join over 100,000 men who trust Caldera Lab skincare products. Use code OU Insider at calderalab.com and get 20% off your first purchase.
Well, and the final 8 quarters of his play have been, I mean, arguably maybe the best stretch that we've seen him. I mean, the game that he just put up against Iowa State was fantastic. He looked really, really good in that game, and then to come back and not only keep Oklahoma ahead in this game and do the stuff that he did with his legs, but to go 4-4 on that final drive, to get the pass interference call there, and then obviously to finish it off with that big touchdown throw at the end. It's just you gotta love it for the kid. And I'll say it again, the hate has to stop. I brought this up last week, and we talked about maybe it's a little bit early for that. No, I'm doubling down. You got to feel better about what's going on for him, and you got to love it for these guys. Just to see them have some success and go into the bye week at 6-0. So what am I missing?
No, oh well, they're showing it up on the television right now. So Parker and
okay,
I got transfixed and reliving the moment a little bit. I didn't get to see. So I did not get to see the last play.
Really?
Like,
were you in the elevator? Or?
oh, you know the story of the last play. I yelled, "Oh!"
Oh yes.
I got talked to because I went, "Oh my god!" In the press box. Some people didn't like that, but whatever. It was kind of a oh my god moment. Like it was like, and it wasn't like a cheer or anything. It was like I can't believe I just saw what I just saw because I did not. Dylan Gabriel was getting sacked. That was the thing. I had no idea. I had to turn to Jesse and go, who caught that pass? Because all I saw was a ball go out, and I was like, oh, he's just throwing it away. And I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, just kind of throwing it up in the air. And then it was caught. And wow, that was something. Then when I saw the replay of it, it was something. Like, I have no idea how he got that ball out of there. And they just showed it
I don't know how
again.
he had.
Well,
Yeah,
I have
I don't
no
know
idea
how he
got
had the
that ball out
space
of there
to throw it like
without
that.
breaking his hand on somebody's helmet or something.
Walter Rouse did a fantastic job on that play, picking up the pressure and holding two defenders off long enough at the exact same time, one with either arm, for enough time for Dylan Gabriel to get that ball out. And then Nick Anderson, man, that guy just knows. He just has, I don't even, do you call it a sixth sense? He, for whatever reason, is just always in the right place at the right time. He's got 11 catches this year. 6 of them have gone for touchdowns. That was the only pass he caught today.
You want to know who played well today in blocking and catching that nobody is really talking about all that much and came up huge on a couple of drives. Huge.
I think I know where this is going.
It's Austin Stogner. He's gotten so much hate from people this year. And I keep telling everybody, I'm like, dudes, it's going to happen. It is going to happen. They are going to start using him. They haven't had to. But isn't it ironic against the two best defenses they've played this year, Iowa State, Texas, they've relied on Austin Stogner so much more. He had 3 or 4 targets against Iowa State. I think he had 3 catches, 5 targets today. And they weren't just small catches. They were big plays that extended drives. And we were talking about it in the press box. And I believe it was Tawee Walker's second touchdown that this happened. It was essentially the Austin Stogner drive. Like they hit him. They go to Drake Stoops. Mm-hmm. They hit Stogner again for a big play. Dylan Gabriel follows Austin Stogner around on a QB counter, right? And Austin Stogner absolutely just pummels the dude that he's blocking. And you can tell he's completely gassed. Who do they run behind for the touchdown? Austin Stogner. I believe it was Rouse's side, or I can't remember which side, but it was kind of they kind of crisscrossed to open the hole up and bam. But I just think like I'm gonna give him his flowers because he played really well today. Like that's the Stogner that the OU fans were hoping, but he hadn't gotten a chance because he hasn't been utilized in the way that he needs utilized. And that's how you utilize Austin Stogner. You get him in space over the middle and you make those safeties and those linebackers hit him, and then he's going to drag him for there was one of the catches, he caught it, and I think it was like a 2nd and 15 or whatever. He catches it, and then he drags the dudes like a whole pile for the first down. And that's how you use him. He's not going to be Jatavian Sanders. Like, that's not who he is.
Sure.
He's an inline blocking tight end that can get you a lot of yards over the middle and get you some chunk yards just by dragging guys because he's so big. And he kind of lumbers down the field, but you utilize him the right way in the run blocking and through the air, you're going to be successful. And they made the safeties. They started using him, and what happened? The safeties had to start accounting for over the middle. They had to creep up a little bit when they saw him go up the seam, and then you had Jalil Farouk, Jaden Gibson, and who else caught a deep ball today? That was just anybody else catch a deep ball today? Or is
Not that I can remember. Jalil Farouk probably had the game of his
two
career.
them. Yeah.
5 for 130.
Yeah, he had a hell of a game, didn't he? He is
And they needed it because Andrell Anthony got banged up. They needed Farouk, especially late in the game there.
that injury could be massive.
It could be,
I
but
mean, just
and it feels weird to be saying this, but if there's a position you can afford an injury, it's wide receiver, isn't it? There's just so many playmakers.
but that's one of your guys that stretches the field. I guess you would probably lean a little bit more on Brennan Thompson if that becomes the case, right? Like you'd have to. All right, so
Him
let's
and Gibson as well.
Yeah, and Gibson. So I'm trying to look at receiving yards here on the season. Jalil Farouk with 415, Andrell Anthony with 429, Nick Anderson 282, and Drake Stoops 258. That foursome of receivers, they're putting up some ridiculous numbers early in the season. They're all on pace for 500 plus yards on the season. Easily. 2 of them are on pace close to 1,000 if they can stay healthy. That would be something. Rushing, I think, is where it just kind of gets you kind of just look and go, I don't know, man. Tawi Walker, 239. Major, 226. I hope he's okay. He got dinged up again today. Dylan Gabriel, 208 rushing yards this year.
And over half of them came today.
Well,
Wow.
that's why I just kind of I read it and I looked at it, I was like, that just doesn't make sense. It's hard to just grasp. So
This might be one where I have to set it up and spike it and let Parker spike it because he knows the kid just so much better than I do. But I don't
Come
know
on
if you
now.
guys could tell.
I know where
I
this
don't
is
know if-
going.
I hope so. I don't know if you guys could tell from the sidelines, but it was easy to tell whenever Caden Green came in and took the position there at left guard. Immediately, it was like T'Vondre Sweat just disappeared.
I don't know if he's giving that job up.
I
Straight
don't know
up,
if
like
he is either.
I don't
It
know if
was-
he's giving that job up. T'Vondre Sweat was completely neutralized
yes.
when Caden Green entered the football game. And that is an NFL caliber defensive tackle, guys. That is no scrub. That is arguably the best defensive lineman that Texas has on their roster. And the guy that got tasked with blocking him is a true freshman. And granted, like, we all knew Caden Green was that dude. We all knew he was good. He was a top 100 consensus recruit across the board. I think maybe one recruiting service had him outside the top 100, but that's a service that's notoriously tough on offensive linemen. Even so, we all knew Caden Green was good. But for him to do what he did today in his 6th collegiate game at the age of 18, 19, you cannot say enough about what that kid did in more snaps than he has seen in a game to this point in his collegiate career.
Oh, well, so yes, Caden Green was an absolute monster. Brian, did you see the play where he absolutely buried Sweat?
Yes,
Just
I did.
absolutely. Did you see
Yes,
it?
I did.
No.
And then stood over him. Go
did.
watch it. He
did.
just stood up.
I-
He
that-
stood over
it
him like
will-
this.
It will be making an appearance on the next Field Vision.
Let's go,
Absolutely.
baby.
And I may not even have to say anything. I may just look how beautiful this is. It was
He's just-
fantastic. It was great.
And he's just that kind of dude too. Like he loves just throwing people, and he'll let you. Has he gained weight?
Bigger. He looks a lot bigger.
Yes, he's
A lot
gained weight.
bigger.
I don't know how much weight. I think he graduated high school like 310. I don't know what he is now offhand, but
He's a large human being. I don't
yeah,
know.
no, he's a big boy. He's a big boy.
At what point do we see Savion Byrd again this year?
Again, how do you justify trotting anybody out there at left guard but Hayden Green last year?
McGuire, do you see Savion Byrd at right guard? You have Green at left.
Oh, so you're talking about moving Savion Byrd to the other side?
You got to do something at some point.
Yeah.
You got
So
a bye week.
Who
got a bye week to figure it out? Can I make a suggestion?
you may.
Call me crazy, but would it be? What about?
I know what he's about.
What about Taylor or Sexton
Big sexy.
or Taylor?
Yeah, I mean Taylor's played guard.
Jake Taylor. I mean, why? What is wrong with those two? Are they? You got to figure something out, and you've got two guys that can block, and they're good players, and they've been proven to be good players.
Yeah,
give them a chance. I don't know that you can rely on Caleb Schaefer for a whole.
that's right. Oh, so it was Caleb Schaefer that
Yeah.
came in. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I couldn't put my finger on who was it.
He's a decent player, but come on now. Like, we all know that those two are better. And if you can somehow get them to fit into that guard position, if you are just reluctant to throw Savion Byrd back in there, and do it. I try somebody else. I know, but you're also giving up tackles at that point, and you're already thin at that position. But you're beating Bo, and you like to play everybody at multiple positions anyways. You got a whole bye week. You got 2 weeks to figure it out. 2 weeks.
I will say
You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Something interesting that you could potentially look at, and I don't know. Obviously, today was a bad day for Everett to be thrust into the position that he was.
Yeah,
Considering
Everett's a good one too. Yeah.
I mean, size wise, it wasn't great having him one-on-one with Devondre Sweat earlier in the game. It was just a tough situation. But
Yeah,
like
he
you
needs
said, the
Smitty
good news
another year,
is
doesn't he?
he does. He does. He needs to put on some mass. He is. The good news is, like you said, they've got a bye week to figure it out, and then when you come out of the bye week, you play a UCF team that just gave up 399 yards rushing to Kansas today. So you can get some things figured out in the run game. 399 and 5 touchdowns on the ground for Kansas. It was a pretty lopsided affair there. So you have some opportunities to get the ground game right.
What'd you say, Brandon?
Was Jalen back?
Jalen Daniels?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe so. I think it was Bean. I think they only threw for 91 yards today. It was all
Well, shoot,
on the
when
ground.
you're running the ball that effectively,
Right.
Yeah, right.
you don't need to throw.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Danny Stutzman. First off, he has his hair cornrows or braided or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Very atypical of him. He had a cowboy collar on today. I don't know if anybody noticed that.
Yeah.
And number 3, obviously he played amazing, but did anybody else see that photo on Twitter making the rounds of him in the cowboy hat and the golden hat?
Boz glasses.
The Boz glasses, the golden hat with a cigar coming out of his mouth,
Absolutely
in a king chair.
epic photo. Epic.
That's electric content.
That was awesome.
You know who led the
That's
Sooners in
on
tackles
brand,
today?
too, by the way.
You know who? You know
I
who?
do.
Jaron
I
Kennedy
do.
Jaron Kanik. Jaron Kanik
Sure
got
did.
13 tackles today.
played really well. Yeah, he's coming out of his shell a little bit, coming into his own. You can see him getting more and more confident as the season rolls on. And let me tell you all this. Kendall Dolby at the cheetah position is good.
Kendall Dolby in general is good.
He's good.
Kendall Dolby, very quietly. I think we get so caught up in the praise for guys like Woody Washington and Gentry Williams and Peyton Bowen and Key Lawrence. Understandably so. The guy that kind of flies under the radar is Kendall Dolby, but every single time he's been on the field in a substantial capacity this season, he's made at least one big-time play.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He has made play after play after play. And the way they're using him and McCullough at the cheetah position is really, really they don't put them in precarious positions. If certain personnels come in, they're matching up correctly. Obviously 2x2, 3x2, a lot of 11 personnel you're going to see Kendall Dolby in, but anytime you see 22 or 12 personnel, it instantly McCullough comes in. And that is exactly how they should be used. And it's working. I know if you have Justin Harrington, you don't have to do that. You just keep the guy in there the whole time. But you don't. So you got to coach and you got to be creative and you got to develop the guys and put them in the position to be successful. And that's what they're doing. That's what Brent Venables has done there. I think it's going to be really interesting when guys like Omasigo get to start understanding the defense better at that cheetah spot. It's going to be really interesting with a lot of the guys that, if Justin Harrington comes back next year, we know he's going to be the cheetah.
Sure.
But you'll be able to rotate Omasigo in there. You'll be able to rotate whoever you get in the recruiting class coming in. So the depth is being built there. It's being built at safety. It's being built at corner. I really, really like the dynamics of this team and where it's headed. And Brent Venables was asked about that today, guys. He was asked, where is this program 18 months into your tenure?
I'll tell you where they are, Brandon. They're 6-0.
Yeah.
They are 6-0.
So it's bye weeks. We won't have obviously we can talk about anything at this point.
Can we talk about the goal line stand?
Yes, we'll talk about let's talk about the goal line stand, but I want to before we close this thing out, I do want to throw their schedule up and I want to see if we all think the same thing.
Okay. On the goal line stand, first off, Texas had first and goal at the 1 yard line. That wasn't a case of, you inch closer, and you only end up running a play or two from right on the goal line. No, Texas had first and goal at the 1. Mm-hmm. And Oklahoma stuffed them and stuffed them again and stuffed them again and stuffed them again. And Kip Lewis, we didn't call Kip Lewis's name much over the course of that football game. But that was one moment, one juncture in the game where Kip Lewis really made his presence felt because he was heavily involved in blowing up those plays on both first down and second down for Texas. Deshaun McCullough, same deal. He was in on that second down play, and that third down play was pretty much all him. But I think the standout play of that whole exchange, that the final 4 downs of that possession, was the play that Billy Bowman made at the goal line. Mm-hmm. Because with as much momentum as who was that to Worthy? It was to Worthy.
Worthy.
With as much momentum as Xavier Worthy had, as he kind of angled for the end zone, Billy Bowman basically had one angle, like basically one spot that he could hit Worthy. He had to make that hit just so in order to keep Worthy out of the end zone. And boy, did he come through. If you watch that play over, I had to do a double, triple take. How did he not get in the end zone? Mm-hmm. All Billy Bowman, man. Came downhill like a missile and denied him the goal line, which was a huge play in that football game. The entire complexity of that game changes if Worthy crosses the goal line.
You talked about, you kind of hit on Deshaun McCullough there. There was, and you'll see it if you watch back the broadcast, when they brought in Byron Murphy and maybe it was Collins. I don't think they brought in Sweat, but they brought in the defensive line to help push
He
the
went
guys
power eye,
through.
correct? Yes.
Yes, and when they did that, Deshaun McCullough with the most selfless play. I mean, he had to have known that collision was not going to be it was not going to be enjoyable. Like he wasn't going to enjoy that moment, but he straight up puts his body on the line, blows up Byron Murphy trying to on this stretch play to get to the outside, blows it up, and it allows his defense to rally behind him. And it was a fantastic play. And he doesn't get credit for the tackle, but he is the one that made that play. And to see a goal line stand in any football game at any level is fun, but when it's three consecutive stops at the 1 yard line, you just don't see that happen very often. And again, that speaks to the character of the football team. And I feel as if that was a defining moment for the defense, that times have changed. This is not what it was a year ago.
Bingo. And Danny Stutzman said in postgame, that's all heart.
Yep.
And he's right.
Yep.
You got to have a will to stand up and not back down when that ball is 3 feet from the goal line and the opposing team has 4 chances to push it across. The odds are very obviously stacked against you heavily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who raise your hand if you thought there was any chance they stopped them?
Oh, yeah, no. Even after they stopped him on the first 2 plays, I figured, okay, it's third down. I figured, okay, it's third down. Sark will dial up something creative, get outside the tackles, and nope. They shut that down. They shut it down. By the way, it was an excellent play call on 4th down. Like, that should have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
Again, it takes the perfect play by Billy Bowman to deny Xavier Worthy the goal line there. And it's a play that Bowman made. I guess what I'm saying is Texas didn't hand that to Oklahoma. Oklahoma made the plays.
Well, there's some Texas reporters out there claiming that was botched and he was in and all that type of stuff. I'm like, dude.
Are they the same propagandists that we're usually arbitrarily referring to as Texas reporters?
One of them,
Big Cow Media LLC.
One of them has a great soundbite of him at a Big 12 Media Day berating the head of officials for the Big 12 for the previous season.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't know about
But it wasn't berating. I guess you were that stern question, if you will. It doesn't matter. I just kind of they were very, very adamant that he was in.
Which he wasn't. Like, if you watch the replay, he was not in.
I'll leave that for the officials to judge, and if Texas wants to think they got screwed, then they keep that same energy. You're going to see Oklahoma the first weekend of December. So
yeah, and that's, guys, as we kind of flip the page and as we look ahead for this football team, that's kind of my main concern. And like I use that word, and maybe it's not entirely fair because I'm not legitimately worried about them falling victim to it, but you do wonder after an emotional win like that, do they get too high too fast? And is there the crash after the bye week? That's what kind of scares me. And that, admittedly, more than anything else, is based on patterns that we've seen from Oklahoma football teams of old that don't really mirror the makeup of this team here in 2023. But even so, the schedule is pretty tough throughout the final 6 games of the season. And I'm not legitimately worried about this being an issue given who is the head coach in particular, because BV is going to have, you would figure he's going to have his guys.
Think about it. Who are they playing?
Well, they're playing UCF first weekend off the bye.
Well, then right then and there, they're not going to slip up because that's Dylan Gabriel's ex-team.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and not only that, you got Derek LeBlanc over there playing for UCF.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that.
There are some reasons to be fired up about all that. In particular, how the Golden Knights fans view Dylan Gabriel and all the negative things that they've said about him over the last 2 seasons, that the team is going to want to rally around him. And I think that sets up perfectly. If it was anybody else, I would be in your train of thought. But the fact that it is UCF and that Dylan Gabriel has been just belittled by those people within the program and the fans. I mean, right?
The Dylan Gabriel revenge game, huh?
kind
We
of.
had the Dylan Gabriel Renaissance game today. Got the Dylan Gabriel revenge game on the 21st of October. But I guess where I'm going with my point there is I truly do feel like until they see Texas again, until or unless they see Texas again, I suppose, the only team that's going to get in Oklahoma's way is Oklahoma. So they have been very remarkably averse to beating themselves through 6 games. And that's a healthy and encouraging trend for this football team. They have not gotten in their own way, at least not substantially. Can you sustain that for another 6 games? Because, look, guys, if we get a rematch between Oklahoma and Texas in Arlington in December, that could go either way. Texas is a very talented football team, and it's very difficult to beat the same team twice in a single season. That's a hard thing to do. So Oklahoma will be challenged, and that is a game that Texas has the requisite talent and coaching to go and win. They are capable of exacting revenge on Oklahoma. But until then, the only team that can get in Oklahoma's way is Oklahoma. That's the way I look at it.
I think Kansas is going to be tough. I just do. I think that's going to be tough. I think the good news, for Oklahoma is that Andrew Rames said it when we were interviewing him post game. He said, "Well, we're not finished." He goes, "We remember 6 and 7, and if we don't, the coaches remind us every week. You remember how bad you felt this whole offseason? You do remember you're 1 year removed from being under 500. Like, they throw that out them, kind of like a back to reality type of deal to keep them focused. And to me, it's really, really probably encouraging if you're an Oklahoma fan that that's the case, that they feel that way, that the staff feels that way. So let's dive real quickly into, everybody gets their little pick, and then we'll pick our players of the game on offense and defense, and then we'll close this thing out. They have UCF on October 21st. Can UCF beat Oklahoma? Of course, potentially, maybe. I don't know. Anybody can beat anybody at any point in time. It's college football. Parity resounds in college football these days because of the transfer portal. That said, I think we're all on the same page, right? Like, Oklahoma's probably going to smoke UCF. You don't think?
UCF plays the way that they have the last couple of weeks, certainly. I do think there is an element to it, though, and this is something that has been reiterated to me in conversations with few folks around the program. There's still an understanding that even though they're coming off that 6 and 7 season, and admittedly, I don't think anybody's going to be talking about the 6 and 7 season anymore. But there is an understanding that every single opponent Oklahoma faces is going to go the extra mile to try and put themselves in position to beat Oklahoma. Because Oklahoma is the cream of the crop in the Big 12 and has been for the better part of a quarter century. So there's a very natural target on their backs. I do not think that on paper UCF has what it takes across the board in terms of sheer talent to compete with Oklahoma. And again, if Oklahoma gets in their own way, that's the only way to jeopardize their odds to win.
Right. What do you say, Brian?
I look, the lowest winning per ESPN's matchup predictor, the lowest percentage of odds of winning right now remaining on Oklahoma's schedule is 88% against TCU in the final week of the season. I'm looking at the schedule up and down. I don't see a game, honestly, where Oklahoma isn't a double-digit favorite at this point. And so I think that's a resounding answer is you just if Oklahoma doesn't beat themselves, you should be able to handle things the rest of the way. It's just going to be a matter of taking care of business. And to this point, today, I remember saying it, and sometime in the second quarter, it was whenever Oklahoma took the 20-17 lead to go into halftime, 20-17, and I said this feels like an early Bob Stoops era team, the way that this team is playing football right now. It does. And I didn't, and that wasn't even to liken it to the 2000 team. It just felt that early 2000s team, or the early 2000s teams that they put together. Obviously they were talented as the years went on, but they were also really good situationally. And I think if they can continue that trend, it's going to be really tough for anybody remaining on their schedule to get the better of them.
Let me give one final shout out to Dylan Gabriel for what I believe is the most underappreciated play of the day. And that is the throw to Nick Anderson, not the one that went for a touchdown, but the one that resulted in a pass interference penalty. Because on that play, Gabriel really didn't have anywhere else to go with the ball, but looks down that left sideline and notices that Anderson's getting hugged by his defender. And, if he goes another direction with the ball, if he throws it somewhere else, maybe that gets called, maybe it doesn't. But he zipped one right out at Nick Anderson's reach, not enough to put the ball in harm's way to the point where it could be picked off by a defender, but enough so that all the referees' eyes are going towards that football, and they all see the contact, and they throw the flag, and that sets Oklahoma up with a first and goal. Like, it's plays like that. And it's easy to point to the big plays. It's easy to point to the big runs, the scrambles to move the chains on third down. But it's plays like that that oftentimes are the razor's edge between victory and defeat. With no timeouts, does Oklahoma have nearly as easy of a time getting the ball down into scoring position absent that penalty? I mean, maybe. You can't say that definitively. That play and that decision by Dylan Gabriel, that ultimately set up what has become Dylan Gabriel's seminal moment as an Oklahoma Sooner.
Yeah. Well, he's got a chance to really continue to build upon this. Obviously, like we said, he's got his former team UCF coming up, and then on top of that, you have you go to Kansas. I think that's going to be before the season started, we all circled BYU and TCU as the very difficult part after Texas, right?
I think BYU is still going to be tough. TCU, not as much. BYU, yeah, that one, especially on the road, that'll be tough.
Agreed. That said, at Kansas, we all know Lance Leipold can coach. We all know they're more talented than they were last year.
It's a streaky team, though.
They are
streaky team.
So, what do you think the odds are? If I gave you, what do you think the odds are Oklahoma could lose that game? You give the chances.
The Kansas game.
Kansas, yeah.
I believe they will go into that game as a 7-8 point favorite, even on the road.
Okay, like 20% chance they lose. 10%.
I mean, sure, 20.
Okay, Brian.
I'd say 15. I would say 15% chance they lose.
Yeah, I'm about 20, 25%. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay, and then obviously we all think that Oklahoma's probably going to bum rush Oklahoma State and Stillwater. No, I think they're getting better, and I think they're going to challenge them probably for a half. But then I think Oklahoma pulls away, just because it's OU, OSU, and Oklahoma State notoriously finds a way to lose that ball game. That's what they do. Look at the record.
Yeah,
it's awful.
Yeah.
West Virginia at home, revenge. You don't have to worry about them not thinking anything. They know they gave away that game last year.
Yeah,
and they're going to want revenge on that one.
That definitely feels like a game where they're going to leave no doubt.
And
Like it feels like that one could be, and I don't know what West Virginia's record will be at that point, but that feels to me like a game that could end up being more lopsided than people expect.
I agree. I think they're going to come in and try to put their foot on their throat and make sure they understand. Big dogs
It's
lead.
funny that
Got away with it one time. Because
West
literally one
Virginia
time.
could legitimately be 8-1 coming into that game because their next 4 games are Houston, Oklahoma State at home, at UCF, and then they get BYU at home.
Oh, sheesh.
So
That would
there's
be
a
awesome.
legitimate
That's a
chance
six. That's a
that
6
West
and 3
Virginia would
team
be-
minimum.
Yeah.
That's a team that's going
So-
bowling. Heck,
Yes.
how about it, Neil
Yep.
Brown?
So
Saved your job.
that would
Yeah.
be a fun one.
Thank Oklahoma in 2022 for this chance.
Literally. Literally,
Because he was getting fired.
he was fired. He was fired the next day. He was fired the next day if West Virginia had lost that game.
Wow.
I know that for a fact.
Okay. Then the big one at BYU. BYU could be. Let's see where they are. What's their record right now? They are 4-1. BYU has what in the world? Just kicked me off of it. BYU is at TCU next week. They're on a bye week right now. At TCU, then they get Texas Tech at home. They go to Texas. They go to West Virginia. They get Iowa State at home, and then so they could be what? So
I'd
win,
7-3.
win 7-3.
Yeah, I would say 7-3 probably is what I would peg BYU at coming into that game. 6-4, 7-3.
So Oklahoma's schedule at one point that just looked like there was a lot of potential cakewalks. You got Kansas, BYU, and obviously West Virginia, and then Oklahoma State. I bet you Oklahoma State is. Let's see. They play OU.
Yeah, they're
4th.
back up to 3-3 after beating Kansas State last night.
So they got Kansas at home next week. They go to West Virginia. They got Cincinnati at home. So they could be 5-3.
I'll be honest with you, Brandon.
5-5.
They could just as easily be 3-6 as 6-3. I have no idea what Oklahoma State is.
Agreed.
I'm right there. Yeah,
it's just
I
a
don't
very,
know.
very confusing football team, as per the usual.
But from
then
what we saw
TCU, we
against
all
South
know.
Alabama,
Yeah,
sheesh.
no doubt. And then TCU. So we all expect Oklahoma to run the table. There's going to be potential pitfalls there with West Virginia coming to town and then going to Kansas and then going to BYU. I think those are the 3 games you look at. And I hate to say that because I know Oklahoma State's going to be up for it. They hate OU. They hate the fact they're leaving them. There's a lot of disdain there. And you know what? Who knows if the Big 12 commissioner and the referees or whatever. Now, I'm not a big blame the referee guy, but we all know walking into this year, we've
Sure.
talked about it.
Sure.
What you do is you don't give the referees a chance or the Big 12 or anybody a chance to cause an issue. You just handle business and you don't worry about it. If you separate yourself enough that they can't do anything about it, then it is what it is and you move on. So you know that the Big 12 commissioner does not want OU and Texas being in the Big 12 title game. Unfortunately for him, they're the 2 best teams in the Big 12 title game.
They're probably going to be the 2 teams squaring off in the
Sorry.
Big 12 title game. And I think if Oklahoma stretches this thing to 8-0, there will be folks nationally, and there might already after the Texas win, but there will definitely be folks at that point that are talking up Oklahoma as a national championship caliber team. Oklahoma hasn't been 8-0 since 2004, guys. And there have been a lot of very talented football teams in Norman since then.
They were 8-0 in 2021.
Were they? I guess they were.
We just talked-
They haven't been 9-0 since 2004. There you go. 9-0. 9-0.
We just talked about this, Parker. I know your allergies
Well-
are killing. So, all right, we're gonna make this quick. Homeboy needs to go take some allergy medicine. I was there last week. It was miserable, dude. I was there so bad that I took antihistamines that my saliva gland got blocked and it hurt so bad, man.
Thanks.
So learn my lesson on that. Just deal with it and move on. As far as the runny nose and stuff. All right, defensive player of the game and offensive player of the game. Let's get to it. I'll start, and I'll go ahead and take the easy one off the board for you on the offense.
I'm going to make the executive decision that we are allowed to agree on this one.
Okay.
All right.
All
Let's
three.
let's
Dylan Gabriel is our offensive player of the game. Though I do want to note that Jalil Farouk was my second place. So, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah. It's okay. Like this is Dylan Gabriel's day. Dylan Gabriel is the hero. I feel like we can make an exception to the typical policy and just come to the consensus. Dylan Gabriel is the MVP of the day.
My defensive
Agreed.
player of the game is Gentry Williams.
Yeah.
So, and I know I there were several guys that we all could look at, right? And we could all name here. And I know his stat line wasn't amazing or anything like that, but he had a fumble recovery, an interception, and he only had one tackle. So can I do something here? I'm gonna do player A and player B for me. Is that cool?
Sure, go ahead.
Because there's a lot of guys we could choose from here. My other one's Ethan Downs. And I'm gonna go Okie across the board here. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. He only had 3 total tackles, and he had a QB hurry. So Ethan Downs with arguably his best game in an OU uniform. Yeah, I get particularly on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
So Brian, who's your defensive? You can name 2 if you want. We all can name 2 since we all just did one offense guy together.
So I mean, Ethan Downs has got to be one of the 2 for me. It seemed like whether it was him setting an edge or obviously getting to the quarterback, he was terrific. My second one, to me, it's Billy Bowman.
Yeah.
I know that he didn't. I know that he didn't have the interception, but he was the one that made that play, separating the ball. And then obviously, as we talked about, the play keeping Xavier Worthy out of the end zone was it was terrific. It changed the course of that football game. So he'd be my 1B there.
Are you going linebacker?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go with Billy Bowman, but that's okay. I'll let Brian have Billy. I'll give it up to Jaren Kanak. I mean, 13 tackles. That speaks for itself, man. That was arguably his biggest game in an Oklahoma uniform, that performance today. And they needed it from everybody to pull this out. Nebraska had 10 tackles in a half, too. But, I mean, that was – yeah.
That's insane.
That was great. It was also Nebraska, and they weren't really doing a whole lot offensively in the second half. But, so, yeah, I guess absent Bowman and absent Ethan Downs, I would go Jaren Kanak. And I just love where this linebacker core is at right now. One of the paid propagandists from Big Cow Media LLC tweeted earlier in the week that Oklahoma's linebackers needed another year.
What?
I don't see anything right now with this linebacker core to suggest that they need another year. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, and again, you go back to the plays that Kip Lewis made on the goal line stand. Danny Stutzman is Danny Stutzman. Kanak is the one guy I think in that core that maybe hadn't quite lived up to expectations thus far this season in terms of productivity. And obviously that shot to the chest that he took in Cincinnati, that was going to have some ramifications, and it was going to be a minute before he was completely himself again. But it's been 2 weeks since that day, and the Jaren Kanak that we saw today was as good a Jaren Kanak as we have seen this year. And so very, very pleased with the way he played today. Very pleased with the way Brent Venables has his linebacker unit clicking as a whole.
You didn't want to
The defensive line deserves some flowers too, just in general.
Okay, if I'm going to pick a second guy,
I apologize.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Brian. I'll go defensive line with the second guy. I'll say Dejon Terry had a very quietly excellent game today. 1.5 sacks.
Yeah.
And
just
yeah. I mean, and Jonathan Brooks was able to get some on the ground Like
But it was
He
outside
popped-
a lot, right? Like
he popped off a couple big runs, but again, you go back to moments like that goal line stand, right? And a guy like DJ Terry is just so valuable to have, clogging holes in the middle. And he did a great job of that and did a great job of getting after the passer today as well. I don't know if we talked about it enough in this podcast, guys. The Sooners as a unit were excellent today at keeping Quinn Ewers under duress, which is exactly what we said all week that they needed to do in order to win the football game.
Yep. Gap integrity. We talked about it over and over on the podcasts. Got to be gap sound, gap integrity. And I think that goes in particularly at UCF because both those quarterbacks can run. And then with Kansas, both those quarterbacks can go too. So I think that is something that they're going to harp on throughout the bye week and through over the next few weeks of practice as well. Going to get real good at that, you would think, over the next few weeks to where it almost becomes second nature now that they're playing a lot of mobile quarterbacks that can move around and really escape the pocket and make you play within the scheme and not, go willy-nilly and freewheeling out there and just kind of doing what you want. And it worked out for Oklahoma that they did that today. So, all right. Oklahoma won in a very, very, very big thriller. Game lived up to the billing, 34-30. It was an epic game. And it's going to have ramifications on the recruiting trail. And it's going to have ramifications throughout the season. And if you want to stay on top of all that, you got to go to ouinsider.com, sign up right now, VIP. Right now, VIP. You sign up right now. You'll be able to stay with us throughout the whole year. All the way. You sign up 1 year right now, you get the whole year, the rest of the season.